Richard Feynman was an American theoretical physicist, and he was known for his work in the path integral formulation of quantum mechanics, the theory of quantum electrodynamics, the physics of the superfluidity of supercooled liquid helium, as well as his work in particle physics. For the contributions that he had to the development of quantum electrodynamics, Feynman received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1965. But he also stated this: never confuse education with intelligence. You can have a PhD and still be an idiot.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fire Forged Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in The Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fire Forged Leader.
What is up, leaders? Welcome to the Fire Forged Leader podcast. Once again, I'm Steve Baumgartner, your host, and I would like to take you on a journey of the Forge, where we're going to explore lessons learned on the front lines of leadership. But first, let me share an important message from a friend of mine.
Hey, it's Tyler from Cross the Bear. I just wanted to go ahead and take time to say it's December. We're having a concert April 12th, 2023 with Disciple and Decipher Down. But in honor of Jesus' birthday, this whole month, or the first 500 tickets are going on sale right now for $5 off. Eventbrite, search Darkness Will Fall, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And any help we can get, thank you.
All right, let's get into this topic today. I want to talk about this preconceived notion that we have in business and really in the United States as a whole around education. We have been living in a world for decades that says if you don't have a degree, that you are a lesser human being. However, that veil is starting to be lifted on the subject, and more people are coming to the realization that this thought pattern is just plain, straight up bullshit. Yeah, I said that. It's straight bullshit. You know, I get it. I know where it comes from. My grandparents, they didn't receive an education, and they wanted something better for my parents than what they had. They had broken their backs, they had calloused hands, and they didn't really have a lot to show for it. So they wanted something better for their children, who are my parents. But over the past couple decades, these tides have really started to turn dramatically. There is school after school catering to children, churning out degrees that many of them never even use. It's a racket. U.S. News states that for the year of 2023-2024, that the average cost per year for a four-year college is over $42,000 per year. And that's at a private college, and over $10,000 for a public college. That doesn't even include the living expenses that these parents are kicking out for these kids to go to college. Now, I wanted to drive home an example today. I just moved down from Nebraska last year, right? So I looked up the University of Nebraska. Pretty good college, right? But also modest as far as where it's at and the tuitions. So at the University of Nebraska, for the years 21 and 22, so for that school year, they stated that the tuition and living expenses per year for the average student was $26,316. Now, I'm no math major, but I can tell you pretty quick for a 4-year degree, that's over $100,000 for this experience. Right? And let's talk about that word experience for a little bit. I've heard this on many things lately that kids may not need to go to college for the education. They need to go for the experience. Bullshit. You can get experiences a lot better ways than spending $100,000. Now, Robert Farrington challenges this whole notion. Robert being from Forbes, he states that it's time to change the narrative. And for more reasons than one. Not only does trade school help students land a job faster, it also costs significantly less than that traditional college experience. Plus, jobs in the trades are booming in general, whereas many other industries are oversaturated with graduates looking for work. All right, so let's break that down a little bit. He talks about the cost, and he also talks about the oversaturation of the jobs that colleges are producing workers for. All right. Now, I'm not a guy with a 4-year degree. I've tried it, don't like it. The reason why I don't like it, I'll tell you in a little bit. But most everything that I learned was either through trade school or by research because I needed to understand the topic for work. All right. Now, don't get me wrong. All right. I am not an advocate of disbanding all 4-year, 6-year, 8-year colleges, right? However, I will tell you that there are some jobs that I think should have that much education. For example, if one of my children is about ready to have their tonsils removed, I definitely want that doctor to understand where the damn tonsils are at. All right? But let's talk about this trade school experiences versus the college experience for a minute. So trade schools generally come in at about 1/3 of the cost of traditional college. Now let's talk about some of those jobs, all right? Because I hear it all the time. Well, you can't get paid as much if you go into trade schools. Well, let me tell you, for 2023, 2-year degrees in IT jobs, the median is $91,250 coming out of trade school. For healthcare, the median is $70,000. For 2-year degrees in business and finance, $72,250. All right. So let's look at some 4-year degrees. Electronic engineers, $71,440 is the median. Computer science engineers, $83,821. And yes, there are some higher paying ones. Chemical engineer, for example, $108,350. However, let's take a look at that. So an IT job, you can come out making $91,250. Chemical engineering, you can come out making $108,350. How many years, do the math, how many years is it going to take you of working that chemical engineering degree to make up for the money that you lost in school? And then you need to look at the rate of increases for those two trades. And I guarantee you're going to be money ahead taking the 2-year degree. Now I'm going to talk about a different way, right? I'm not saying that trade school is the way that you need to go either. Now, what I will tell you, that trade school is better than college for this next reason that I'm going to tell you. It has been proven time and time and time again. In the 80s, this was proven, and it just keeps on getting reproven, that the way that people learn and retain knowledge best is the 70-20-10 model. It's been considered the best in class for training for effectiveness and retention for years. What is it? It's 10% book learning, 20% mentorship, and 70% getting your damn hands dirty. On the job training. So what do technical colleges do, right? Or trade programs, excuse me. What do trade or technical programs do? They have, I'm not going to say that they follow exactly the 70-20-10 model, but it's damn close. They do book work. They learn theories. They, get instruction from their teachers, things like that. They have direct mentorship, because rather than an academic professor, what they get is they get someone who came out of industry to teach them, to mentor them about actual events out in the field. And then lastly, lab work. All right, so how does this really look? Now, I went in the early 2000s and got an electronic degree in trade school. At that point in time, I would say that it was about 40% in the classroom, and then the rest was in the lab. All right. So I would say that this mix was about right, because once again, my instructors had come out of industry. They taught us the theories, they mentored us in the classroom, but then they brought it out to the shop. They brought it out to the lab, where we'd actually create things, where we'd work on things, where we'd fix things, and they would mentor us in that lab. This is the model that trade schools use, and it is very effective. Most people who come out of trade schools, I'll tell you right now, they don't need a lot of training. They need the basics. They need to understand your industry. They need to understand your safety. They need to understand, any sort of other specialties about your industry. But they can go out there and start figuring things out on day one. Now let's look at what those 4, 6, 8-year colleges do. All right. And like I said, I'm not totally against this, but what do they do? Bookwork, 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 lecture, bookwork, lecture, bookwork. It is nothing but speaking at the student from a place on high and doing a lot of bookwork. All right. So like I told you guys, I've tried taking a couple of bachelor programs here and there. The last one that I took was not too long ago. It was probably about 2 years ago. And you probably not going to like this, but I'm pretty blunt of a person if you haven't noticed. So this was a virtual environment. I was told by someone in power in my company that you have to have a degree for the job that you're working. You have to have a degree. Why do I need a degree? I'm already doing the job, right? So I went and I found something that didn't even make sense to take for the role that I possessed. It was something that I was just interested in, to be honest with you, but I was going to get this degree. However, I ended up dropping out after a couple of semesters. But after one semester in particular, I was really, really disgruntled after this. I asked for a one-on-one with the professor to give him some feedback on the class that I had just completed. And I really told him, and it was a lot more words than this, but the basis of it was that this class needs more substance. I could have learned what you taught me in this entire semester. I could have learned that content in 20 to 30 minutes on YouTube. And I told him I just paid $6,000, for this semester. And he stated, yeah, I know. He didn't even argue with me. He didn't tell me anything that was unique to the class. He didn't tell me anything that I might have missed. He said, yeah, I know. And that should be raising some alarms in your head right now. These colleges are there to make money. All right. So I'm going to stop on that train for a little bit and talk about this YouTube. So bringing up the YouTube conversation that I had with this professor, I talked about the 70-20-10 method. But within that, there's also different learning styles that people have. We've all heard about them. Some people are auditory learners. Some people are visual learners. Some people have a mix of them. But there's a lot of different styles. And we all have different learning styles. I personally learn things very quickly by watching YouTube, pausing it, following through with the steps, and I can learn things very, very quickly. I taught myself how to do data analytics through YouTube, how to make very, very professional dashboards with Power BI in YouTube. And I've learned how to do a lot of other things, how to work on cars, how to do just about anything, right? I'm one of the best Excel users in my company, and I learned it all from YouTube. Now, my wife, however, is not wired like me, and she does not learn off from YouTube like I do. She is very much a reader and loves to read for instruction to do what she needs to do. So going back to colleges a little bit, I think we've went off course with colleges overall. And I'm just going to share some opinions, right? So don't get all triggered. Don't get all, edgy about it. I'm not telling you my beliefs other than I believe that colleges care more about feelings and safe spaces and things like that, and have forgotten about their mission, which is preparing people to go to work. That's what education's for. It's not for all of the rest of the things that they do. Like most colleges today, believe that it is their job to instill values into students. Now, I don't care what side of the line you sit on, all right? I know where my beliefs are, and I'm not taking away from your beliefs when I say this. But with all my heart, I believe that every American should be pissed off about this. It is our jobs as parents of our children to instill values, not schools. And I'm not talking about any sets of values that I hold. I'm talking about what you hold. What you hold as a parent is what should be instilled in your children, not what some ding dong professor says in a college. We need to rip that shit out of there and pay for what they should be doing, which is giving them the education for work, to bring them to be self-sustaining members of society. Now, here's another thing that I find absolutely amazing about colleges. Many, if not most, of the professors that are in these colleges have either never done the work that they are teaching, or it's simply just been decades since they've done it. Now, recently I was talking to my dad about college. He got a college degree, right? His parents wanted a life better for him than what they had. So they wanted him to go to college. He went to college. But he was telling me here the other day that the university had called him back and asked him to really teach the professors that had just taught him on the new technology out in the field, because they were that damn disconnected. Disconnected because they're not out there doing it. So he was learning in the real world faster than what the colleges were. There's a problem with that. Now, I really just want to ask you straight up, right? I want you to think about all of your employees. I want you to think about all of your coworkers, and be honest for a second. The roles that they have, what's the percentage that really require a 4-year degree? I'll wait. It's not very many of them, people. It's not very many of them. If you work in a doctor's office, there's probably a higher percentage, right? If you work in a laboratory, probably a higher percentage. But most of us are in jobs that don't require this level of education. But we want to keep on ramming it down the throats of our people who are applying. Now, I'll also tell you that when I look at the people that I've personally hired over the past couple decades, I found that most of the time, the non-degreed people are the ones that really get to work. They're the ones who get out there and make things happen. Now, don't misquote me. I once again didn't say that having a degree is bad, but my experience has shown me that the people without degrees generally tend to get out there and work harder. They have something to prove. My belief is that they have to prove that they're not a lesser human being because of the way that we look at education. So overall, people, just to tie a knot on this discussion, we really need to change the narrative that we have about degrees. A degree does not equal a successful hire. The best people that I've personally known in my life are the ones that don't have degrees. And I'm going to relate that back to it's because they haven't been told how to think. They've had to figure it out. The best thinkers that I've ever known don't have degrees. The ones who are usually stuck when it comes to free thought are generally the ones that have a ton of education. And the cost of college, people, come on, the cost of college is 3 times that of trade schools on average. But it's not showing in the end product. If we're going to say that people need a college education, let's make sure that it's worth something, right? Now, here's the thing is I've brought this up many times in my career. And what's the answer that I hear? Well, it's not really because of the education. It's because we want to see if they can finish something. You want to see if they can finish $100,000 something? Come on. Give them a project. See if they can finish that. All right. The learning format as well in these colleges totally defies the case studies that have proven time and time again that the 70-20-10 model is the most effective to retain and educate people. And I certainly don't need a school to teach my children and my future employees their value systems. That is the parent's job to teach, and really the child's job to discern. So in closing, the system is broken. Ultimately, we are hiring with an antiquated standard of measure using education. We need to be able to look beyond the education section of the resume and look at that person and what they're truly capable of. So let's get out there and let's hire those right people for the person, not the pedigree. Pedigrees are for dogs, not humans. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on this subject of education. So you can reach me on all the socials at Fireforge Leader. I'd also like for you to hit that rating button and leave me a review because it helps us stay on the top of the charts so this message can hit the ears of more listeners. And then finally, make sure to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on a single topic. Now, big news today. I just locked in Jeff Teagues, who is an author. He was a Green Beret. He was Delta Force. He's a man of God. He also is the president of Skull Games, which we'll get into in that podcast. But it's going to be absolutely fantastic. If you've never heard Jeff speak, haven't read his book, I encourage you to do so and be looking for that in the beginning of January.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the forge.